And I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, President. Russia voted against General Assembly Resolution 71248. We believe the so-called mechanism on behalf of which Ms. Marshall-Uhel is here is illegitimate and shouldn't even exist at all. The process for its creation was marked by such flagrant violations of international law that speaking about the legal validity and admissibility of its hypothetical evidence is simply contemptible. In any self-respecting country, legal proceedings that use material from this body is hardly possible. It's very regrettable that the General Assembly, to the detriment of its own prestige, is spending time on discussing the work of this structure and its report. The document, indeed, is rather thin and hardly meets the criteria of accountability that the mechanism is calling it to fulfill. But a lack of transparency and accountability is not the most substantial problem of the mechanism. Let's begin on procedure. Syria did not request the UN for assistance in investigating crimes committed on its territory. Moreover, Damascus has made it unambiguously clear that it does not need assistance. In this connection, I'd like to recall paragraph 7, article 2 of the Charter, that says that the UN does not have right to interfere in affairs that fall within the internal competence of any state. This also pertains to the process and rules of criminal proceedings, which will certainly happen in Syria once peace has been restored for this long-suffering land. Moving on. The criminal investigation is not one of the functions of the General Assembly. Mechanisms on investigation and mandates on this are often created by the Security Council, which falls within the main responsibility of the Council, which is maintaining international peace and security. In some cases, the GA has authorized the Secretary General to carry out necessary negotiations with a given state. And in these cases, the key aspect is prior consent of that state. Having decided to create this mechanism, which is focused on proof of specific criminal acts and addressing factual issues concerning the criminal responsibility of individuals, here I quote paragraph 25 of the report, the General Assembly acted ultra vires, stepping outside of its remit as reflected in Articles 10, 11, 12 and 22 of the UN Charter. Resolution 71248 was drawn up behind the scenes and cast before the General Assembly without the consent of the Syrian Arab Republic. Creating such a mechanism in the absence of a clearly expressed consent by Syria or a resolution of the Security Council under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter is a blatant violation of the principles of sovereign equality of all members of this organisation and non-interference in their internal affairs, as enshrined in Article 2 of the Charter. With these factors in mind, Resolution 71248 is null and void, and will remain so. As a consequence, everything done by the mechanism and also the UN Secretariat following the adoption of this resolution is outside the framework of the UN Charter and international law. Particularly, as has been mentioned by my Syrian colleague, under Resolution 71248 manifestly runs counter to the UN Charter, the mechanism cannot be deemed to be a subsidiary body established by the General Assembly, nor can it benefit from legal standing. But it does not have the privilege and immunities under the Convention on Privileges and Immunities of the UN, and it cannot have the legal standing to sign agreements with states and other structures, including international organizations. None of these agreements have legal force. Moving the mechanism to funding from the regular budget of the UN also should not be up for discussion. With all of this in mind, any information or proof collected, consolidated, preserved, or analysed by this mechanism cannot be used for any potential legal proceedings, whether they be national or international. That means its work is nothing more than political scheme, and countries that present themselves as champions of humanism and standard bearers of justice have inveigled the UN in this. The Russian Federation is not considering the possibility of cooperating with such a mechanism. I thank you very much, President.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation for her statement.